Lviv is thought to be the most comfortable city of doing business in Ukraine due to that geographical position close to Europe and also due to its large business community. Moreover, it's often called as a cultural capital of Ukraine. However, it's difficult for foreigners to get used to Ukrainian lifestyle. On the one hand, they are annoyed by the local transport, old buildings and local bureaucracy. On the other hand, a lot of foreigners are delighted with the low prices comparing to Europe and United States and with the quantity of entertainments which are existing here. So we are going to discuss all this issue with our clients and friend of our BK Partners company, Mr. Aaron. So Aaron, you lived in Ukraine for the last 1 year. But when you enter Ukraine, you have first impression about Ukraine, about Lviv. So do you remember your first impressions?
I thought it was really positive. I liked it right away, especially in Lviv. It's a great city, very friendly and easy to enjoy. So I was surprised at how beautiful and
what most surprising you here? Like first time you just enter the city, so
yeah, it's so well preserved. And tourist oriented. There's cafes and shops and restaurants everywhere, and a lot of old cities in Europe that you go to, like Prague or Krakow, and it's like just like that here in Ukraine. And so in the United States, we get a really different impression. We're told certain things about Ukraine, and then when you get here, it's the opposite of everything that you've been told, and that's the real surprise.
But if you compare Ukraine cities, Ukraine residents, and United States, what are the most differences? Like what's the most is different from the United States?
I think surprisingly, there's from what I can see, there's no crime here. The crime rate is so low. You can walk the streets day or night, anywhere in the city. In the United States, crime is it's even in nice areas, it's high, and then they have bad neighborhoods. There's no bad neighborhood in Lviv, so that's one of the big surprising things. And then just the centuries-old history. We don't have a lot of history in the United States, and so here, not only is it here, but the city does a lot of work to preserve it and make sure that it's there for people to enjoy.
Yeah, but for example, when Ukrainians going to United States, the first impression that they have, it's like a very simple things. For example, it's very strange for them that even in the restaurant they got every time cold water, or for example, the shower is fixed and you could not take the shower and make your hair wet. So what are surprises for you here in Ukraine? For example, what about English speaking, like in Lviv? Is it easy for you to?
Yeah, I think that the language barrier is definitely an issue. So it took me a while to develop a group of professionals and friends that speak English well and help me navigate the system, because it's still not that common for people to speak English. And or day to day, stuff, buying things in the store is not that bad, but the details of doing business, it's so useful to find people that know English well to get get business done.
Yeah, but in everyday your staying here in Ukraine is very complicated for you, like without normal English speaking person. For example, a taxi, I don't know, restaurants, to make the order. So what do you feel when you want to get from from A to B routes?
Yeah, it's no problem, because Uber works great here. So I just, you push the button, you go where you're going to go. So you don't really have
speak with the driver.
Yeah, you don't really need to speak to the driver with Uber. The technology takes the language barrier out, and so he knows where to go. You jump in an Uber and off you go. It works great. Prices are incredible. And then, the restaurants and everything, everyone speaks rudimentary English to get your food. You're not going to starve to death because of the language barrier. Especially in the city center where there's international tourists. I just read this morning that there's 1.5 million international tourists that come to Lviv. So they're speaking, English.
So for tourists, English is okay. For business, not enough. Or for what? For what is not enough?
People that speak English well enough to make sure you don't miss any details.
Like you told me that your ancestors originated from Ukraine.
Yep.
So did they provide you some cultural, traditional. Did they told you something? What they told you? What did they told you about Ukraine? And what you hear about Ukraine before visiting Ukraine from them? Like, did you use to make Christmas Eve in Ukrainian tradition?
Yeah, because of the Soviet Union, there's no information. Like, people couldn't communicate with the old country, so we didn't really have that much detail. But the culture still was transplanted into Pennsylvania, and the churches and the religion and the food is all the same. It's there, you know. And then you come here, and you know, things that you'd only get certain special occasions, they're in every restaurant, you know. So that's what's kind of cool about it. Is it's very much, you know, kind of getting back to my roots. It definitely feels kind of a homecoming in that respect.
Okay, but did they told you some stories about Ukraine? Like, did you know a lot before entering Ukraine?
No, not at all. It was, you know, they called it the Iron Curtain, and it was just shut off for, you know, for generations. And so it was a mystery, you know, what was going on in the old country.
When you enter Ukraine, it was on that time the war, which is still going on in Ukraine. It was on maybe on more phase, like more active phase. Mm-hmm. So, do you have some feelings? Did you worried about that? And did your friends told you that it's a dangerous country to enter?
So that's the thing, that I was very concerned about security myself, and I did as much research as I could to see what the situation was. But also, when I got here, doing business research, I immediately called the U.S. Embassy and went and visited the embassy and asked them about security. And they made it clear that there's, I think it's 3% of the country has a travel warning, but 97% of the country is safe according to the you know, U.S. Embassy. So they said, you know, it's definitely a conflict, but don't go in the conflict zone. Apart from that, you're free to travel. There's no restriction on or warnings anywhere in the country besides that 3%. So, and then, you know, of course, staying in, you know, keeping an eye on the, you know, on the situation and the news. And it seems like it's stabilizing more than it's getting worse. So it's so far away. It doesn't concern anybody on a day-to-day basis.
But did a lot of your friends worried about that situation? So did they like make you notice that you shouldn't come here?
I had friends that have never been here warning me about things that they don't know anything about, and then the reality of it is it's not what we see on the news. Ukraine has been so poorly branded in the U.S. press that, you know, you think that it's this crazy lawless place with Russian tanks rolling down the streets, and it's actually a safe, you know, organized, beautiful place that, you know, it's much safer than any city I've been in the U.S.
As far as I know, you graduated from MBA. So can you share your experience about that? So what namely it was the school? What was
the University of Phoenix? And yeah, I think it was I was a practicing chiropractor and owned, you know, 3 clinics, and I didn't have any formal business training, so I just went to night school and got all the you know, the classes that I needed to understand business better, and it dramatically helped my ability to manage and grow my clinic system, you know, compared to my peers. And then you know, that was, you know, in the late 90s, and so for the rest of my career, having a technical business understanding certainly set me apart from, you know, any of my peers that never had those classes. So it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
Worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it. Yeah.
Also, as far as I know, you know now what are you doing here in Ukraine? As far as I know, you are making investment in the real estate.
Yeah, real estate investing, and I'm also doing some healthcare work with medical tourism, bringing in some patients from around the world to be able to get some excellent medical care here at a great price. A lot of elective care, and of course providing them with Airbnb apartments for them to stay in. And then there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity in Ukraine. There's all sorts of IT outsourcing. So along with the medical stuff, there's digital marketing. So I'm starting a digital marketing kind of business and group, and expanding the whole real estate brokerage to bring in North American capital, because the returns here are way more than you could get in the United States.
Like normally in Ukraine, there are top three branches that are like economic branches that are developing very fast. It's like agriculture, IT sector. So like we know that in Lviv, namely, like IT sector is developing very fast. We have more than 300 IT companies.
Yeah.
So if you like, as far as I know, also that you are somehow connected to IT Park, or what do you think about IT Park? Because I've seen the article at your website about IT Park, and do you think that IT Park will become new Silicon Valley in Ukraine?
Well, that's one of the things that really surprised me about Lviv is how tech and IT outsourcing oriented the city is. So for IT outsourcing and business process outsourcing, this is like one of the big hubs, is growing to one of the big hubs in the world. And there's a tremendous amount of human capital here for IT outsourcing. So I've been involved since the week I actually arrived in Lviv in the IT industry here. Just keep making relationships and getting familiarized with what the options are. And it's there's I guess 20,000 official IT workers and even more people in university learning engineering and computer programming and all that. And so yeah, I went to several of the presentations of the IT Park. And it's moving along, and it looks like the financing's in place for it. So hopefully they'll actually break ground soon. And I think there's a very good chance that Lviv can be a major IT hub as the industry continues to develop. A lot of international companies are starting offices here and already do business here. And I run into them all the time, and people that have from the U.S. that have IT teams here, and then but they're based in U.S. businesses, so they come out here all the time for outsourcing.
So if you're speaking a bit about business, so now you are somehow in IT business with digital marketing, you're somehow in tourism, medical tourism, and another kind of tourism, because you're attracting people from United States, from abroad to Lviv, to Ukraine, and you are in real estate business. But if you're giving an advice to your business colleagues abroad, so could you name like top three like business models which you recommend in Ukraine with a high return of investment? For example, now we have a very fast developing new branch, like it's solar system. So they calculated their return of investment is near 6-7 years, which is like just very good for such a big investment. So what do you think? What is the best in Ukraine? Maybe restaurants, maybe hotels, Horeca. So what do you think? What is the best what is the best business to make in Lviv? Maybe it's outsourcing, because we have comparing to United States, we have much less prices for work. So
yeah, I think anything you can do to connect the higher wage world with here, because here you have smart, hardworking people, and the wages are very competitive with any country on earth. And so anything you can do to capitalize on that is a good idea, or manufactured goods that you can export. Agriculture is huge here. I've got colleagues that are in the solar industry, and they're putting a lot of money into growing the solar projects here. The subsidies are enough for the next 10 years to make solar a great investment, apparently. And although I'm not involved with that myself, I keep an eye on what's going on in that industry. I think IT outsourcing, business process outsourcing is going to be huge here in creating products in the technology sphere.
If you're speaking about Ukrainian cuisine, what is your favorite dishes in Ukraine? What are the favorite dishes here?
So much. All the food here is amazing. So I would say, traditionally vareniki, you can't beat it. And borscht. It's very unique to here, and it's you think you'd get tired of it, but you don't. Like, you eat it all day long.
But if you compare United States food and Ukrainian food, so like, is it easy for United States citizen to stay on Ukrainian cuisine?
Very easy, yeah. They thought there wouldn't be the variety that there is here, but I had a great hamburger last night. When I travel abroad, it's hard to find a good hamburger, and every American I've brought out here, I take them to this hamburger place, and they're like, this is amazing. It's like as good as a gourmet burger in Los Angeles. So from burgers to sushi, I've got a friend who's a Japanese diplomat here, and he loves a particular sushi bar in town, so it passes his test. So for anybody who comes to Lviv, they're not gonna find eating difficult at all. There's such a variety of good food.
We are speaking also about legal issues because somehow it happens that I'm your attorney. So it's very hard to compare Ukrainian legal system and United States because we are on very difficult stages on our development. But however, all we know that United States legal system is very good and all laws are kept by their citizens. So what do you think what Ukraine should do, what Ukrainian legal system should do to be on the same stage, like just the law should be keep order, like why we don't have such an order in Ukraine? What do you think?
Well, it's just the country is going through reform since the fall of the Soviet Union, and the legal system has to kind of be created from scratch, and unwinding a lot of the old policies and putting in new ones that are more internationalized and that make sense. I keep up to date on the reforms that they're doing in the country, and it's all moving in the right direction. Laws for immigration, LLC, for banking and things like that. It's it has a long ways to go, but it's all going the right way, and it's very market oriented and very kind of paralleling the things that work in the United States, and they're instituting it here. But everything has to take time to get done and done right, but it's all going in the right direction.
But you personally have gone through all business legal issues, immigration issues. For example, you have registered your business here. You have done your immigration status here. Yeah. So comparing to United States, what was the most difficult for you? And is it real very bureaucratized system?
Yeah, it's a lot more bureaucratic, a lot more stamps and notaries. So many stamps and notaries and paperwork, but you made it easier. Definitely, using you for my legal work made life a lot easier. Couldn't do it on my own, and also to find a good law firm that can actually get the paperwork done takes a lot of the stress and mystery out of it. So that was huge, very helpful. But there, you certainly, I think what is just surprising how many copies of my passport and translations of my passport, and how many times you have to go to the notary office and sign and stamp, and a lot more paperwork. But ultimately, when you have somebody handling it, and your staff would take me to the offices I needed to go to and handle the navigating through the language barrier and just how this system worked, and it was pretty painless, really, just time and paperwork.
Our city mayor, Andriy Lviv, is saying that Lviv is very open for investors. Yeah. So do you think it's true? It's really open, and as a local investor, what you can recommend to other investors to do?
That's the thing here. I came a kind of exploratory mission for the summer to see if I could really start a business here. That it looked good on paper, but then after being here for 3 months, it says, yeah, I'm thinking to myself that this city really is a great opportunity, and after over a year being here, I still feel the same way, that there's a lot of opportunity both in Lviv and the country in general. So I think that Lviv's definitely open for business, and everyone business people that I meet, I tell them about it, and they're going. It almost sounds too hard to believe, or what's the catch? It's like the catch is just connecting this culture to ours, and there's language barrier and other things, but it's really it's a very easy and pleasant place to live and do business. So I keep feeling that it's surprisingly a lot easier and more opportunity than I ever thought. So I think that the mayor's on the right track, and they seem like the city is very oriented to business too. They really are. They're not making it worse for you. They're making it better. And they're very much into developing tourism and IT. So the city is a great hub for that.
May you, on the end of our interview, say a few words about our legal law firm? So, like your impression in working with us, and a few words about our company.
Yeah, I think my experience has been very positive. It made my life a lot easier. Your staff they've always been very helpful, and I found it was great to. A lot of the paperwork that I had to do, you have to go to these various offices, and even when I got my residency, you had to get a medical exam, so I had to go to hospitals and clinics and all this stuff, which I guess you don't have to do now. But they went with me, offered transportation, just navigated the system very effectively, and it made life a lot easier. And then I've also done some real estate work with you too, and some due diligence reports on various properties that I'm looking at, and bilingual reports, very professional, on time, good advice.
And great negotiations in the restaurants.
You had the deals gone through, you'd have made more money, but you advised me not to because it wasn't in my best interest. So that's always good to know that you can trust a firm to give you good advice that's not even necessarily in their best interest monetarily, but in the long run it builds a relationship that obviously keeps me coming back. So that is there anything specific about the firm that you'd like me to answer? My experience is great, and a professional environment and a great staff, and so I think it's I recommend it to my friends and colleagues. So.
Thank you very much for your interview. Thank you for everything, for your recommendations.
You're welcome.
And I wish you a good business in Ukraine, especially in Lviv.
All right, I appreciate it.